Hello, and we are back with the rest of the questions from Unit 5 of Physics Jan 21 IAL. The photograph shows a bee in a flight. The movement of a bee's wings can be modeled as simple harmonic motion. State what is meant by simple harmonic motion. We know that a simple harmonic motion is a motion where the acceleration is directly proportional to the displacement, but the acceleration is in the opposite direction to the displacement. A bee's wings are oscillating at this frequency. The wingtips have a maximum speed of this much, so that the amplitude of the motion of the wing is about 1.5 millimeters. Okay. So first of all, you have to use the formula omega is equal to 2 pi f. The omega means the angular velocity. Frequency f means the frequency, and using that we have to find the angular velocity, which will be in rad per second. Next, we have to use the formula for velocity is equal to a omega sine omega t. The a means amplitude, v means the velocity, omega means the angular velocity, and omega t means time. So for the maximum velocity, we know that sine omega t will be 1. Okay, so 2.5 is the velocity that we found over here, and a is the amplitude we don't know, and omega we found in this part, and sine omega t will be 1 for the maximum velocity situation. So the amplitude will be 1.49 times 10 to the power minus 3 meters, which is about 1.5 millimeters shown. The maximum acceleration, we know that maximum acceleration formula is minus omega squared x. So you input the value of omega that we found in part B1 and the value of x, and that using those you can find the value of acceleration. Don't forget to write your answer over here along with the unit. Okay. Where the wings join the body of the bee, there is a region of elastic material. The vibrating wing muscles set the elastic material into resonance. State what is meant by elastic material. So, an elastic material is a material which returns to its original shape once the deforming force has been removed. So, we can add one word here: deforming force has been removed. So, what is meant by resonance? We know that every object has its own natural frequency, which means if you set it in motion, like if you disturb it just once and then let it go, it will oscillate. That period of oscillation, that frequency of oscillation by which it freely oscillates after disturbing once, is its natural frequency. Now, what will happen if you keep disturbing it at its natural frequency? In that case, it will keep on gaining that energy and the amplitude will keep on increasing. So the rate of energy gain by the body, if you disturb it at its natural frequency, is maximum. So how to write the answer in the style of the question? This is given over here. So we have the frequency of the bee's wings, that is 240, but the muscles only oscillate at a frequency of 60. So how does 60 Hertz maintain the oscillation of 240? You see, 60 times 4 is 240. So maybe the wings are oscillating at 240, but the muscles are oscillating at only 60 Hertz. So since 240 is a multiple of 60, so this vibration goes to the wings at a certain time interval, and that is a multiple of this frequency. So there is a maximum energy transfer, and that is how the wing oscillates. The main factor is here is that the 240 is a multiple of 60. And this is a very easy question. What you do is you equate the top row and you equate the bottom row, and we for the particles that we know for sure, their charge and the nuclear number, we fill them up first, and then we go for the particles that we don't know the nuclear number of. So for example, we know that beta is an electron, so it is not a nucleon, so its nuclear number is 0. And also we know that its charge is -1, so we have put -1 over here. And after that we equate this all this the top row only. It is 40 is equal to 40 plus 0 plus 0, like x plus 0 plus 0, so x turns out to be 40. Similarly, you can equate the bottom row. You know that potassium has an atomic number of 19, so you input that first, and you also input the value of beta. So there is not much work to do in the bottom row actually. So this is how you get the answer. So for A2, the situation is that the potassium atom, the potassium nucleus, it breaks apart. It breaks into calcium, beta, and the electron neutrino. What happens is the mass of the potassium nucleus is higher than its fragments. So this mass, the mass of the potassium nucleus, is higher than the fragments. So we want to know what happened to that energy. That energy got converted into that mass, that missing mass got converted into energy. So let us find out what is the missing mass, how much is the missing mass. So first of all, we add up all these three masses together, and then we subtract this mass from the mass of potassium nucleus, and that is how we find out the mass defect. So this is the mass defect. This is the mass defect after subtracting the masses of all these three particles from the potassium nucleus mass. So what happens to that mass? That mass is converted into energy. Um, Notice that we have to convert this mass into kg. The masses are given in atomic unit. So one atomic mass unit is 1.66 times 10 to the power minus 27 kg. So you have to convert this into kg. Once you've converted this into kg, you can input it into the formula. E is equal to mc square, and m is the mass defect and c is the velocity of light. And using that, you can find the energy in joule. Now, to convert this joule into mega electron volt, there are two steps. To convert the joule into electron volt, you have to divide by 1.6 times 10 to the power minus 19. And to convert that value, that electron volt into mega electron volt, you need to divide the value by 10 to the power 6. Explain why there is a range of energies from the beta particles emitted in the decay of the sample of potassium-40. You see, what happens is, the potassium nucleus decays. It gives out kinetic energy. But how the kinetic energy is distributed depends upon how these three particles are arranged during the decay. Okay, so in one decay, the situation could be that the scenario could be that the calcium nucleus has gained the most amount of kinetic energy. In another situation, it could be that the beta particle has gained the most amount of kinetic energy, and so on. So the distribution of the kinetic energy that is resulted from this decay is not constant. It can vary from explosion to explosion, from decay to decay. That is why the kinetic energy of the beta particle, and indeed the kinetic energies of all these three particles, vary from decay to decay. And exactly that is stated over here in a more concise and a more in a nice statement. It is stated here. A sample of potassium chloride initially consists of this much atoms of potassium-40. Half-life is this much. 1 year means this much seconds. Show that the activity of the sample is about this much becquerel. Okay, so the formula for activity is lambda n. So n we know, n it is given in the question, but we have to find out lambda. The formula for lambda is ln 2 by t half. So ln 2 by t half. So since we have to find it in becquerel, and this formula lambda n, here the lambda has to be in seconds. So once you find while finding the value of lambda, you have to convert the value of your half-life into seconds. So the half-life is given this much years, and we have to convert these years into seconds. That is why we multiply the years with seconds value, and we found the value of lambda in per seconds. This is important, the unit, and then you input this per second value into the lambda. And n we know from the question, multiplying these two, you can find the activity. It is claimed that after a period of 50 years, the activity of the sample would be less than the activity of the typical school source. Assess the validity of this claim. Your answer should include a calculation. Activity of the school source is this much. So let us see what happens after 50 years. After 50 years, so let us see how much time it takes for the sample in the school to reach this much value. We know that the initial activity is this much, and let us see how long it takes for the activity to reduce to this value. So this is the final activity, this is the initial activity. Initial activity we know from the previous part of the question, and present activity is this much, and we want to find out how long it takes to go from this activity to this activity. You are taking ln on both sides, and using logarithmic equations, we can find the value of t to be this much seconds, which is this many years. So what they claim to be 50 years, it is turning out to be this much years, so the claim is false. Okay, this is an HR diagram, and we have to mark on the diagram the position of a star similar to the sun. So we know that this HR diagram is arranged according to L by L sun, which means where the value is 1, our sun is somewhere over here. Okay, so we mark a star similar to our sun, then you have to mark anything you have to mark anything that is close to this 1 region. Anything close to 1, any star that you mark in this region will be correct. Okay, so now we have to explain the changes in the appearance of the AHR diagram as the star cluster gets older. Okay, so what happens when a star gets older? You see, these are the main sequence stars. Okay, these are the main sequence stars. So what happens is when a main sequence star gets older, it uses up all the hydrogen. So you can add this line over here. I forgot to add this line, but this answer is enough. But you can also add this line if the mark was higher. That once the main sequence star uses up all its hydrogen, it converts into a red giant. The red giant feeds on helium. It fuses helium, and this red giant is somewhere slightly above the regular main sequence star. So if this is a regular main sequence star, this one, once it gets converted into a red giant, it will be positioned somewhere over here. Okay, that is because its luminosity increases but its temperature decreases, so it stays somewhere over here. From here it goes to somewhere over here. But after that, after feeding into helium, that red giant gets converted into a white dwarf star. The white dwarf's luminosity decreases but its temperature increases, so it comes down to somewhere over here. This entire scenario has been explained in this paragraph over here. If you don't understand the paragraph, leave a comment and I will explain it to you in person. Okay, so this is a scenario where we have to determine the velocity of Andromeda galaxy relative to the Earth. So we have in the lab, we have wavelengths of this much and this much. So we have to convert this wavelength to the wavelength that we observed from the Andromeda galaxy. So I'm using a value from my graph, that is 393. This value could vary from person to person. I'm using this value 393. So 393 minus 393.4, this is the lab value. This is the lab value, and divided by the lab value, that is your del lambda divided by the lambda of your lab is equal to V by C. The V we have to find out, and C is the velocity of light, we all know. From there we can find the value of the velocity. So in this question they are asking what happens when a star that is covered by dust, we observe it, what happens to its calculated distance. So what we do is we observe how bright a star is. Okay, generally what happens, if you see a car on the road and if you see that the light is very faint, then you understand that the car is very far away. But it could be the case that the car is very close to you, but there is smoke in front of the car. That is why the light of the car is seems to be very faint. So a similar situation happens when we observe stars. Maybe a star is very close to us. It is supposed to be very bright, but because of the dust around the star, it is appearing to be very faint, and we conclude by looking at the intensity that the star is very far away. Using equations, of course, we just don't conclude qualitatively, we conclude quantitatively how far it is. So this could be the scenario that the star is covered in dust, so we conclude that it is very far away, where actually in reality it is very close to us. So if the dust is around the star, it reduces the intensity. Intensity is inversely proportional to the square of the distance. So if the intensity is less, we conclude that the distance is more. So this was our final question of Jan 21 IL Physics Unit 5. If you have any confusion of this paper, then please let me know. This is the third part. There are 2 other parts before this part. And if you want the solution of any other paper, please do let me know in the comment section below. And if you understood from this video, then subscribe and like the video, and let us know in the comment if you want the solution to more papers. Thank you for watching.